Hey, what is up YouTube? It's Overlord here, and today I want to discuss Halo 2's netcode once again, and the MCC as a whole. The reason being is because a new patch has just rolled out that has supposedly fixed most of the problems that the Master Chief Collection has concerning matchmaking and Halo 2 Classic and the Anniversary version's netcode. As I've said in the past many times, both Halo 2 Classic and Anniversary have two very big problems that get in the way of it working smoothly. Number 1 being the fact that the game is built off of a Vista port, and number 2 being that the game randomly demands 2 megabytes of information, which slows down the game and exacerbates problems that the awful netcode already brings. The recent patch has only fixed one of these problems, which is the information error. The netcode, however, is still in awful condition. Today I tested in both LAN and online how well my shots would register, and how well shots would register upon me. I put on Halo 2 Classic on midship and shot from one end of the map to the other. I used the sniper rifle to line up my shot and fired at my enemy 4 times. I did this a total of 10 times, taking turns shooting and being shot at with a battle rifle, and then being on and off host for the online. And I tested this with 3 different people to make sure that I wasn't lagging. When I was online and testing the netcode and had host, and I was shooting across map, only 20% of the time one of my shots wouldn't register. When I was being shot at as host, however, 50% of the time it would require a 5-shot kill. This was consistent throughout all 3 people whom I tested it with. When I was not host, anywhere from 40 to 50% of the time it would require another shot to kill the person whom was host. And when I was being shot at, only 10 to 20% of the time they would have to put another shot into my head to kill me. Now, despite the fact that I had a 45 millisecond ping and my opponents either having anywhere from a 40 millisecond to a 90 millisecond ping, this was consistent throughout all 3 of them. Now, on LAN, for the 30 times that I tested the hit registration, I only had 2 shots not register and blood fly out of my guest screen, meaning that roughly 7% of the time a shot that should have registered did not, despite being on LAN. Halo 2's netcode is still very broken and very inconsistent despite the patch that supposedly fixed everything. This is absolutely awful, and it's a shame. Since launch up until now, many people have been unable to play the game, and even now many people are still having problems post-patch. I myself have been randomly kicked from a game that's halfway done many times since this patch has gone up. Yes, I can finally search matchmaking with my friends, but what's the point if half the games that I play I get kicked for no reason other than the game being completely unstable? As my friend and fellow YouTuber Batman Dobbin said, 343 should be putting the brakes on Halo 5 and pouring all of its resources into fixing the collection, but they aren't. They want to sweep MCC under the rug and make way for Halo 5, because MCC would be very valid competition for Halo 5, and I can promise you that if the game was fully functional, then the population would rival that of Halo 5's throughout most of Halo 5's lifespan. They released a half-made game with fucking huge problems ranging from the actual game code itself to the matchmaking system, so they can make a huge profit off of it, then sweep it under the rug and publish the next game with little to no competition from the previous title, increasing their profit margin quite a bit. What's even worse is the fact that MCC cannot be properly fixed. This is a ship that was set out to sea with full intentions on sinking. Now, let's say that the game fixes 2 very big glaring problems, which is the low population and the matchmaking stability. This leaves Halo 1 and both Halo 2s with an awful netcode, meaning all these games are going to be lackluster, frustrating experience, and the population will slowly tamper off, because those games are more frustrating than fun to play thanks to the shoddy netcode. This leaves essentially 3/5 of the game unplayable, unenjoyable, untouchable, and inconsistent. There is essentially no way to repair the damage done to this game without rebuilding it from the ground up, taking out all the Vista ports and replacing it with the better Xbox versions of the game, then taking time to build an anniversary version of the Xbox version of the game. If the developers of this game wanted to make an enjoyable experience, they easily could have, with a little bit more work and a little bit more effort, but they didn't. This is a game that was nothing more than a cash grab, a way to push out the Xbox Ones and make a lot of extra money off of Halo fans' nostalgia. Now, my friend Batman and so many other Halo fans want to save the collection, but sadly there really isn't that much to salvage off of this ship. It's a game that's going to die an unfair death thanks to the incompetence of greedy developers, and I have a feeling that many more games in the future will have the same thing happen to them, thanks to the way that games are being published now. Now, before we go any further, I do want to acknowledge one thing. 343 did not do all of those ports. Most of those ports were from different developers, and as a matter of fact, all of them were. And the game with the biggest glaring problem was ported by Certain Affinity, and I'm talking about Halo 2 in case you couldn't tell. Now, yes, I do agree that 343 fucked up on the networking, and the networking should have been fixed and should have been ready on day one, but I'm willing to cut them some slack because of two reasons. Number one being that taking 5 games and smooshing them all together and then trying to make them switch out seamlessly in online is very hard. It's a very hard thing to do, and I believe it's actually the first game to attempt to do so. So of course it's gonna have problems. And number two, if 343 didn't have to deal with the online gameplay problems brought on by the Vista ports, then the matchmaking probably would have been fixed a lot sooner. I would have said that it easily would have been fixed within the first month. Now if we go back, every one of their updates had at least a couple of fixes for both the gameplay and online and for the campaign, and that's effort that could have been put towards fixing the networking instead of the gameplay. Now, if you're gonna get mad at something, don't let that pin-up rage go towards the wrong person. This is like yelling at the manager who works at the mall for Walmart having retardedly high prices. It really and honestly just doesn't work. Now, as a longtime Halo fan, I'm extremely sad to see my beloved childhood franchise slip away. Realistically, there isn't much that we can do to make them release a proper collection of the Halo franchise. Now, one might say that we could perhaps boycott Xbox and stall pre-orders for Halo 5, but that's not going to work. We wouldn't have enough manpower to sway Microsoft to give us free compensation like a correct collection, because far too many people aren't willing to give up a month or two of Xbox in protest of the murder of a beloved trilogy. And even if we did, there are far too many other franchises on Xbox, like Battlefield and Call of Duty for example, that are holding a steady crowd, and it wouldn't allow us to make a dent. The only way for us to see any change at all is to have all communities stand together and set aside their differences, and say no to this sort of business tactic, and demand properly made games from developers and publishers alike. If all main platforms like PC, Xbox, and PlayStation stand together and boycott publishers and developers that are notorious for releasing half-made games, or games that have had huge swaths of content cut out, then there's a chance that we could sway the direction of games and make a huge difference in the quality of the content released to us, and the future generations of gamers. I want everyone to let that sink in. Now, I also want you to go over to Batman's channel and check out his video, because I feel that he conveys some points better than what I do. Now, I will leave a link down in the description below, and I hope you give what both of us have said some thought. This is Overlord, signing out.